Brother Sibling Movie.
Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie. You know what? Wait, let's take that again. Because I always pause the screen right before we say it, and like your face was fully just like had a giant bottle in it. I was like, as much as I love finding opportunities to just embarrass you visually as I edit the podcast, I was like, I'll hold on that one. I'll be nice this week.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Starting over. Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we love from our childhood, and some we may be discovering for the very first time, centered around a different theme every season. You know me if you nasty. I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
Sorry.
Hopefully you know me even if you aren't nasty.
I know. I was like, I'm going to take a quick pause and just say, no, thank you. And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan. This week's movie is the 1993 indie rom-com delight, Benny and Joon, which I think we can all agree may not have been the inspiration for Love on the Spectrum.
I have this theory that this is the kind of that this. I'd have to go back and do a little bit more studying of rom-coms of the time. This was a studio movie, so it's not an independent
It's not
feature.
independent, but it feels like it. Watching it,
It feels very
30
it
years
feels very
later.
90s indie kind of thing. But this feels kind of like the blueprint for the sort of what would come later in the early 2000s, the sort of onslaught of quirky rom-com of like Garden State. I immediately thought of after watching this movie, you know,
that was exactly the thought.
Juno, even a little bit, you know, like all these kind of like quirky weirdo love stories. And I feel like again, I don't know if this movie started it. I think Hollywood has always had a thing for like underdog romance stories, but this is one of the first ones where mental illness, for lack of a better word for it, was kind of front and center, and quirky weirdos kind of enjoying their weird, quirky, blah, 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 you know, lifestyle
and
thing.
I definitely thought of Garden State. June is another great one. But yeah, it kind of did precede like 10 years before a lot of those kind of like, you know, oh, she's adorkable and he's serious kind of movies came out.
Totally, yeah. Classic
classy,
pairing.
if you will. And this, I would say too, like, hey, for a movie that came out 30 years ago, this isn't a horrible depiction of people with pretty intense mental illnesses and like learning disabilities and neurodivergences.
Yeah. Totally.
It still treats that with a lot of love and compassion, which is nice to see.
I think so. Totally, yeah. No, I know. I looking back over my notes before recording this episode, I was having, it's so funny, like reading the notes, I'm just like, oh, this fucking quirky thing happens, and oh my god, they're like putting their hands in the paint, and I was giving it a pretty harsh read. And then I realized, like, after, you know, finishing the movie and just sort of like taking it down a peg while I watched it, I was like, I like that. It was fun. I liked it.
I was reading through your notes and I was like, you okay, man? Like, fuck.
You know what it is? I'm still somewhat within 6 months fresh off a breakup. So just watching anybody be happy and finding love with another human being is just deeply angering and pisses me off still. So I can take that and realize that, like, oh right, like I'm pissed off about seeing people in love right now. So, you know, take that. But no, it is a cute movie. I really like it.
I shouldn't be laughing at your very real pain, but like it's very funny.
No, I'm laughing about it, you know. I was like, oh right, I just hate seeing people be happy right now.
Yes. Well, beyond hating to see people happy. What's your connection to this movie? Like, have you seen it before? Have you not seen it before?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I'd seen it before for sure. This struck me as a movie that our father probably
I think so
loved in some
too.
way.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
think because I remember watching it for the first time when I was in high school,
Mhm.
and I think it
I
was
probably saw it around that time too. I don't have a recollection of like when the first time was that I watched it. It came out in 1993, so it wouldn't have been when it
yeah,
came
it wouldn't have
out.
been
I would have been like
contemporary.
6 years old or whatever. But yeah, I think maybe I'm associating it with the quirky weirdo rom-coms of the early 2000s because that's when I was watching those movies, and maybe this
Yeah.
came in around that time too, because that was like high school, mid to late high school times. um, yeah, it was. That's all I can remember. I definitely have a very keyed in sense memory of like holding the Blockbuster VHS tape
Oh,
for some
interesting.
reason. So
That's interesting. I
yeah.
this Benny and June was one of those movies that I think our father must have been the one that introduced it to us because unsurprisingly, he loves a movie with a depiction of mental illness. Um and
Yeah, I know, I know. He still loves Silver Linings Playbook, which
just
I'm realizing nowadays is, like, problematic, but I get it, like,
I get it.
people who are going through those mental things, like, it's good to have, even if it's, like, a little bit of a fantasy, it's good to have movies where they went out and find a way to have a good life, even if it's not a normal life,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And but yeah, I loved this movie when I was in high school because if anybody was wondering what Mare was like in high school, it's June. Um
I had absolutely nothing, in common with Benny. I was like, "I have no idea what it's like being a somewhat normal person taking care of a highly interesting, younger sister figure who
some
is always doing weird shit over in the corner."
I know I was watching this movie and I was like, "Oh shit. Oh shit." um
I don't hopefully I've never been, like, as big a dick as Benny is at his worst
Benny's a
moments,
dick.
in the context of the movie, but I definitely was like, I can identify. It's good to be seen."
Yeah, I know. We'll get to some of your thoughts about Benny in a second, but
Yeah, tell me more about your connection with the movie.
oh, nothing. It's just I was a weird art kid um
Yes.
who didn't I don't know, ascribe to conventions of society all of the time. Um
That didn't like other people.
that had two friends. Yeah,
My hot take, I'm gonna take care of all of my fun little quips that I have in my notes early on, but
please
like
go.
like one of my thoughts in this middle of this movie was like, June, you don't have every one of your emotions doesn't have to be physically manifested with fire. You need to chill.
Okay, but hold on. I straight up there is a scene in this movie where so Benny and June are sisters. We haven't even set that up yet because we haven't done our plot description.
Oh, right. Well, we will get to the plot. Benny and June are siblings.
Yes, they're
Yes.
siblings. And there's this
A brother and a
a brother
sister.
and a sister where Benny does something that June doesn't like. He like tells her off or whatever. And so he comes back to the house like several hours later. She is sitting holding like a Kleenex in front of a fan. And she just is holding it in front of a fan and staring at him as he enters the room, doesn't say anything, lets the Kleenex go, and it falls onto a lit candle on the floor and sets on fire. And she just walks out of the room as Betty is like, "What the
Yeah.
fuck?"
And Benny's attitude is just like, again,
I know his
again with the trying to light the house on fire.
like fucking Jesus. Anyway, okay, but yes, it's um I won't say I saw across the board every kind of similarity, but I also was like, oh man. Oh man.
It's a Hollywoodified version, and pieces of it are too. And part of the whole point of the movie is that she is mentally ill, and I have more things to
We'll
say
talk
about that.
about
But
that in a second.
let's catch people up after we do a quick little synopsis of the film.
Synopsize me, bro.
All right, so. Oh, good. I see you have one
I put one
in
in
the thing.
from
So
GPT, but we don't have to use the
perfect.
GPT. We could use the talkie human stuff.
Yeah. I'll go off of it and add as necessary. It's nice to have something to go off of. So, Benny and Joon, 1993, a romantic dramedy about love, mental illness, and finding connection in unexpected places. That's
about right.
accurate.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. Benny, Aidan Quinn, also super great in practical magic, which I hope we end up doing on one of our seasons. Yeah, I love practical magic. I'm such a fan of
You
it.
know what?
That's also a sibling movie, but it's better for a witch.
It's better for witches,
theme.
but also if anybody's wondering why I'm gay, it's practical magic. That's the reason.
Yeah. He's also got Aidan Quinn in that movie has Bowie eyes, doesn't he?
He does.
He's like one blue, one green.
Hemochromatosis, yeah, because he was made by a magical spell, you guys.
So cool. But interestingly, David Bowie does not have that. The reason his eyes appeared to be different colors was that one pupil was always dilated, which gave him which looked like a different color. But
he didn't actually have hemochromatosis.
Keep going. Getting too deep into magic. This movie has nothing to do with magic. We love magic, though. Okay, Benny is a hardworking auto mechanic who's been taking care of his younger sister, June, played by Mary Stuart Masterson. Let me take that again. Mary Stuart Masterson. Since their parents died. June is an artistically talented, but mentally ill, quite young woman who struggles with everyday life.
Would also like to say this sentence should read, June is an artistically talented and mentally ill young woman who struggles with everyday life. It is not a but.
Totally.
It is an and.
Yeah, no, this is an and. Yeah, this is both things are true equally at the same time. One does not negate the other. And many people can speak to that. Benny feels responsible for her well-being and is hesitant to let anyone get too close. Yeah, this movie is really about two siblings learning how to not be enmeshed and codependent, and I really like that message.
Yeah, it is. Yes. I have more things to say about the sibling dynamic. Keep going.
Yes. Their lives change when they take in Sam, played by Johnny Depp, an eccentric drifter with a passion for silent film style physical comedy, inspired by Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Sam's unconventional charm, we'll call it that, and unique way of seeing the world captivate June, and the two form an unexpected romantic bond. I mean, I'm not so sure how unexpected it is. I mean, look at these two. What happens when you put two hot autistic people in the same room together?
They're gonna do awkward kisses.
Yeah. Although honestly, not nearly as fucking awkward as the heterosexual kisses in this movie. I was like,
they're all heterosexual.
Is this the most?
They're all heterosexual.
Oh right, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Neurotypical.
Neurotypical. Yes, thank you. Sorry, you're right. They are both heterosexual. Yeah, the first when I saw Benny and June kissing, I was like, "Is this the most awkward kiss I've ever seen?" And then 20 minutes later,
June and Sam are kissing.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Sorry, Benny and June are. I always think because it's a romantic comedy that it's like that it should be the name of the romantic couple.
I have
right?
thoughts about that too and why it's called that. But let's keep going.
Totally. So anyway, yes, Sam and June are kissing, and I'm like, is this the most awkward kiss I've ever seen? 20 minutes later, Benny and Julianne Moore's character are kissing, and I'm like, nope, this is the one. These people don't know how to do anything right.
Not even a little. All right, let's round this out.
Let's finish it out. As June falls for Sam, Benny struggles with letting go of his protective role and allowing his sister to live more independently. The film follows their journey as they navigate love, family, and self-acceptance, leading to a heartfelt resolution about trust, freedom, and embracing life's unpredictability.
And
Yeah.
JPT.
And
Yeah.
JBT.
I feel like that's a pretty...
This movie's all about that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good, like, little synopsis. It's like, it's a pretty straightforward story in terms of, like, there's, like, 4 main characters, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They all have pretty, unique interdependent relationships with each other. And yeah, it is ultimately about, like, at what point is loving someone actually loving and protecting someone?
Harmful to them
Yeah,
and yourself.
at what point is it really creating, like, negative feedback loops, and it's harmful to you and it's harmful to the other person? Um,
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of lessons I'm learning more. Well, have been, whatever. We're always learning about these things. But yeah, over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, I have been learning about just, being codependent and how not to do those kinds of things. And I think that it's it's a movie. It has to get wrapped up in 90 minutes or 2 hours, so it's less complicated than a real life version of this. But it's nice to see a movie about people recognizing that, especially for Benny, because obviously I'm kind of like, I understand to a certain extent where he's coming from,
mm,
like just being a kind of fucking control freak about things, where it's nice to see a depiction of people learning that sometimes being too helpful is actually not helping at all. And it's just
yes.
keeping people in your life from being independent and learning how to solve their own problems.
Yeah.
To be fair, June has a very intense version of who the hell knows. The movie
I
never it doesn't care to define what the hell
Well,
she
so
has. It's just
it's
kind of like, a nice smattering of a lot of different mental illnesses, which I kind of take issue with, but
I
still,
so I yeah, I want to dive before we talk more about their relationships, because June's character and her mental illnesses are, like, kind of the cornerstone of the film, and sort of what a lot of
yeah,
the drama and relationships hinge upon. So I do you and I
yes, she is one of the main protagonists, but also, like, in a way, the antagonist of the movie, because
She
everything that
is.
happens that causes complications tends to be her fault. Not her fault, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but
it happens because of
it
her.
happens because of her. And so, like, we do get one flashback scene of their parents dying, and it seems like June and Benny are, like, maybe, like, 5 to 10 years apart in age, potentially.
I know. I was like, wow, they are
Like,
like, yeah,
June is
they are fully different people.
yeah, like, June seems to be, like, she's pretty young when her parents die, like, maybe 10 to 13, and Benny is
Yeah.
probably, like, 18 to 20. Um,
Man, they went hard in that scene. I was
it
like,
went
"Oh, you're
so
actually
hard.
showing the gurney going away? Oh my god, like, Jesus Christ." So, yeah, they're
Yes,
trauma bonded for sure.
for sure. And it isn't really defined what type of mental illness June has. I
Mhm.
was thinking about it,
Right?
and I'm not a
Mhm.
therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, obviously, but it seems like she has some type of schizophrenia or
Mhm.
schizoaffective something, of where
Right.
she talks to people that aren't there, she'll hear voices, but
Mhm.
also there's, like, a layering of kind of
Did they get into that? I didn't
not
remember her,
they
like,
did a
hearing
little bit.
voices and stuff like
They
that.
did a little
Mhm.
bit, and then I think there's also a case could be made of some type of autism spectrum disorder, of where
Mhm.
for a lot of the movie, she's, like, decently stable because she's medicated and she
Mhm.
has a routine and she has a safe home. Like,
Totally.
you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I do think that that is one of the things later in the film. Sam and June are, like, running away, and it's obviously, like, a high
Mhm.
stress situation, and it's in a new
Yeah.
environment, and that is when you actually see June having like a psychotic break. And I was like,
Yeah,
that
I
makes
know.
that
I
makes
was like, "Oh."
that makes sense though, because it's like she's no longer in like a controlled environment that she's comfortable with. She's outside of a
Mhm.
routine. She's having a lot of different sensory information coming in and like can't
Right.
process through it. So it isn't defined. She does have a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist does recommend that she like lives in a group home and stuff, and
Yeah.
like, hey, Benny, like, you don't have to have such a tight leash on June. She could maybe like get a
Yeah, maybe she could be
job.
around yeah, maybe she could be around people who are like her. She can feel a little bit more at home,
Yeah, a little.
in a community of people like her.
Right. And I think it's so interesting because it is really, I mean, I'm an irresponsible younger sibling, so I don't know what it's like. Uh
Do you get those Instagram things on your feed that puberty, puberty? I don't know how you pronounce it. The news organization that they'll sometimes, I don't know, for whatever reason, I get things on my Instagram, which I'm slowly getting off. Everybody, don't worry, I'm not a horrible person. That they sometimes post about, like studies about siblings. It's always things just like studies show that the youngest sibling causes the most stress to parents. I,
Fuck yeah,
I
baby.
hold off on sending them all to you because I'm like I don't want to like barrage Mare with these things, but they do make me laugh.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Also true. Um
Yeah.
But I can understand it of like, having someone in our family who has a pretty intense mental illness and like want and that desire to be like, I want to protect you, and especially like,
Yeah.
fuck, like I'm the older brother and like this is the kind of line stops with me. Like I have to like protect her, and especially having protected her from such a young age. Um
Hmm.
that so much of their relationship has been informed not just by trauma bonding and grief, but uh also by June's mental illness and caring for that
Right.
and shepherding that through
Which
the
wouldn't
world.
have really started to show itself until, yeah, later in their life.
Teenagehood,
That wouldn't have
probably.
really started to show itself until. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you're probably not gonna see that until June is like a late teenage, early 20s kind of age or whatever. Like especially if it is schizophrenia. But
Yeah.
uh it you can it's one of those things that's so hard because it's like at the whole movie I was watching it and I was just like, Benny, fucking loosen up, my dude. And then I was like, but that's so hard because he is trying to do the best thing for his sister. He's trying to do the best thing for like his only
Right.
family
Yeah.
member. Um,
Yeah. He obviously comes off as like a harsh dick even at the beginning of the movie. He's just like so beset upon, but yeah, it's because obviously because he loves his sister and is trying to do the best for her and trying to help her exist in a world that isn't designed for her to
yeah,
thrive in, and
yeah,
it's like, yeah, that gets under your skin, especially when he's putting so much on his own shoulders of like trying to protect, and obviously he's got some sort of resentments about that, despite
absolutely.
obviously loving and caring for his sister, as is the case with so many people who deal with mentally ill people in their families. It's like,
You
it's
love
not
them
that
and you
you
resent
do
them.
it because you love
Yeah.
them, and it does also have a burdensome aspect to it if you don't figure out how to handle it.
Yeah, and if you don't have an outlet, and I mean, I think you could also make the case that, when people experience really intense traumatic events, like there is a part of them that sort of stops there. Like that's where you stop.
Totally.
That's where your
Yeah, you
development,
kind of stop, yeah,
yeah, your
you
development
stop
goes up to
growing.
that point and then not really beyond it, except with like great effort.
Totally.
So it's so June's mental illness is definitely a big part of this, but it isn't ever defined as like she has type 1 bipolar disorder or something. Like it's never
Right.
specifically put out there. It is sort of this amorphous schizoaffective
Mhm.
something, autism something, sensory processing. It's kind of all in there. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and she's just like
Where did
deeply
we start
fucking
talking about this?
weird.
51, 42. I'm going to start actually taking notes of when these things are so I can put markers in when I edit. That'll be nice.
You're so
Yeah,
smart.
yes, June's mental illness is obviously a big part of the fabric that makes up this film, and it's interesting to see how it plays out in the sibling relationship specifically, and in all of the other relationship stuff that it's a romantic comedy. It's all about the relationships people have with each other.
Yeah.
What do you want to dive into next? Funny enough, I feel like you actually did more research on the cinema stuff of this
Well,
movie than I did. I don't know. The one thing I did do is I found whatever there was sort of available on YouTube about the behind the scenes making of
hmm.
this
Oh
movie,
yeah, you
and I
sent that to
talked and
me.
I yeah, it was kind of this long interview, audio interview with the cinematographer
Yeah,
of the movie, and it was all of the screen tests that they did, and he was just talking about what they how they were thinking about the look of the movie and how they were going to make it. Um, it's interesting. People should watch it. Essentially, what I got out of it is that they were trying to make a kind of timeless movie. They didn't want, even though it's set in the period of the
yeah.
time, they were trying to find a way to make the lighting and the camera work elicit this kind of classical feel to it. And I think they did a
I
good
think they
job.
did do a good job.
It doesn't feel super interested in the accoutrement of the time, right? Like it
No,
feels
and it's
very much like it could have happened anywhere. And it was interesting hearing him talk about having to, like, shoot in the middle of the day but try to pretend like it was the morning because
yeah.
the schedule was all over the place. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a specific it's like obviously America, but it could be like honestly almost anywhere between like, you know, kind of anywhere east of the Mississippi. You know what I mean? Like it could kind of
Right.
be
No,
anywhere.
totally. Yeah, it's very kind of like any town America. I think it's supposed to be Washington,
Is
no?
it? I don't fucking know, dude.
I thought it was the Pacific Northwest
Oh,
the whole time I
really?
was
Oh,
watching
I
it.
was like, this
Mhm.
looks like Maine. I've never been to Maine. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I've only been to Seattle once, so
Yeah. I
anyway. But yeah, maybe it's of the North,
of the
a North
North,
American city.
of the
Yeah.
northern region.
West or east, who knows?
Who
Yeah.
gives a shit? I found a fun little factoid about Jeremiah S. Chechik, who's the director.
Mhm.
Uh, i-
Yeah.
in 1998, he made that horrible film starring Uma Thurman called The Avengers. Um,
Oh my god, that movie's so bad.
not Marvel.
Not the Marvel Avengers. This was a take on it was a British spy TV
From the
show
like
from the
the
60s.
60s, and then he remade a film that has Uma Thurman and I think Ralph Fiennes in it or something. It's very bad, and
Mhm.
he got nominated for a Razzie for that in 1998, but he lost. He lost the Razzie to Gus Van Sant's remake of the film Psycho.
Whoa. I actually had no idea Gus Van Sant did a remake of Psycho. I wanna watch that. I'm really curious what his take on it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also the music is by Rachel Portman. She's very famous for having done the soundtrack to another Johnny Depp film, Chocolat. She's a great
Oh, yes. Mhm.
orchestra.
Which was one of the seminal soundtracks in liberal towns
Oh my
of the late
god.
'90s.
Duh.
I think of the soundtrack to Chocolat kind of like existing in a same place as like Buena Vista Social
Holy
Club
shit.
and all of
That's
you
exactly I was
know
just like, it's kind of like Buena Vista Social Club. Precisely.
Yeah, it's totally different styles of music, but like they were all but there
Same.
was it felt like in the late '90s there were all of these movies with like world music
Yeah.
soundtracks that people were getting really
Yeah.
that people just got enamored with, and to me those two are kind of the same time and place.
Yeah, they are. And I will say the orchestration in this film is really great. Rachel Portman is a fantastic composer. The pop music
Yeah.
choices for a lot of the scenes are interesting.
I know. I have something.
You have
I
something to
have
say about
plenty
that,
to say about the
but
scene in the middle of the movie.
but the film does start off with one of the best songs ever written in the 20th century, which is "I Would Walk 500 Miles" by the Proclaimers. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I will be honest, I definitely was kind of like I rolled my eyes a little bit, but then I was like, but this song does rule,
this
so
song
fuck it.
fucking
Like I'll
slaps.
allow it.
It's
It's a
so
very
good. It's so good. Like, it's
yeah.
a joke and it's amazing.
100%. Yeah. And it's so good they start and end the movie with it. They're like,
Precisely.
that's cyclical storytelling, baby. They're like,
Yeah.
what should we end the movie with? And they're like, well, we started it with I Would Walk 500 Miles. Should we just like do that
Keep
again?
rolling.
And everybody's like, fuck yeah,
Fucking
this
shit.
song fucking
This
rules.
fucking slaps. These two fucking Scottish dudes. Hell yeah. Oh my god, amazing. About characters, I especially want to hear your hot takes about Benny. Because I feel like I was reading
So,
through your notes.
uh-huh.
And I was just like, oh, Evan. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Tell me everything about Aiden.
You doing okay, buddy? How you doing?
How you doing, Verity? Yeah, tell me everything
Yeah.
about Benny, who
I,
so portrayed by Aiden Quinn.
I will happily talk
I
ad nauseum about Benny for
I
sure.
gave little like sub descriptors to each character of like break this, I was like, oh, like if you had to put this character in like one sentence. And for his I said just the saddest sad boy who has ever sadded.
Yeah, but also deeply pissed
But
off
so
too, which is
mad. Like so mad
great.
and
I
like
love it.
unable
Yeah,
to um appropriately express that rage. Which
one of the great.
I don't think you can identify with. So I wanna hear your
Not at
take. I
all.
wanna hear your
No.
take.
All right, yeah. Well, let's have a quick free ranging discussion about Benny and all the rest of the characters too, because yeah. So the first thing I think that is a great piece of this movie is the line that Benny has, and it's very telling. Maybe this is the thesis of the film, or getting to the point of it, where he just says, "Do you ever get to the point in your life where nothing makes any sense?" Yes, Benny. Yes, I do.
Every
100%.
fucking day. It
Yeah. Here's another great identifying character trait of Benny, and it says so much, is that he is so desensitized to the weirdness and the stuff that he deals with June on an everyday basis, that he is having a full-on conversation with Johnny Depp's character Sam while he is just in a bathtub, and he's like not batting an eye at it. He's
like
just like,
Sam is
right, it's just normal to have a conversation with somebody like sitting in an empty
so
bathtub. That's
it's
normal.
fully normal to have a conversation with someone I don't know who's sitting in their pajamas in a
Yeah.
dry bathtub while I'm getting ready for
Yeah.
work. That is a
Yeah.
totally normal, not crossing any boundaries. A-okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, after watching The Brothers Bloom, where like I felt kind of like I identified with whatever. To be fair, he is the main character of the
Yes.
whole movie,
With
but like
Bloom.
he's just like the saddest with Bloom. He's just like the saddest, like uncool, like hang dog, saddy sad character, that it was nice to sort of be seen in the eyes of Benny, where he's just kind of, I don't know, I guess you could call him normal. Nobody's really normal in
No.
this movie at all, but just the fact that, I don't know, he's just, he's a good guy, just trying to live his life and also dealing with something that is probably outside of his experience range and trying to do the best he can, putting too much on his own shoulders. I get that.
Yeah, and you said, oh my god, there was something in your notes that was so funny to me, and it was like, oh fuck, I don't know if I can keep it or if I can find it. But it was
Here,
basically
remind me what it is and I'll rephrase it
okay,
to be what.
it was something of like I identify so hard with him. He's just surrounded by crazy people.
Yeah. No, that sounds like what it was that I said. It's like, oh, he doesn't even like, yeah, again, like the
Oh
bathtub
wait,
scene.
this
He's
is what
just
it
like,
was.
I don't.
This is what
Okay.
it was. You said, "I identify so hard with Benny in this movie." Just like, why is my life filled with crazy people?
How did all of these people just surround themselves around me? I'm just trying to be normal over
Just
here.
trying to be normal over here, guys. Yeah, and I think it's so it's so funny because he is this like he is kind of this sort of like, I'm just a dude and I'm trying to do the best I can with the limited resources I have to like care for my sister
Mhm.
and do the best that I can for her
Right.
and like keep
Mhm.
my business running and like make sure my fucking house doesn't burn down because June like didn't like the kind
Yeah.
of peanut butter I got or whatever. Um
Yeah. And
and
then the main inciting incident is that he wins another neurospicy person wins in a
in
fucking
a
poker game.
poker game. So I was like,
This guy is just like, "My crazy cousin came to town. You have experience with this. Like, I'm gonna bet my cousin staying with you in a poker game, and now he's your
to
problem
be
forever,
wait, to be
apparently."
fair, June is the one that wins slash loses
That's true.
the poker
Yeah.
hand, and so, like, there's this really funny, like, Benny and his friends get together, and which I did also love. I was like, "Look at you, straight white men getting together and, like, being friends. That's nice."
Totally. The poker game is one of the few arenas in which we can express any kind of thing,
Yes,
at all to each other.
that is
I'm not a poker player myself, but I'm also recognizing that, like, I should learn. Like, I really wanna know poker, chess. I'm less interested in golf, but, like, I'm seeing other people my age who actually are into it, not just stuffy old white guys. I'm like, okay, I do feel like these are the socially acceptable interactions men can have, and
yes,
I should like, if I'm trying to make more man friends, I should know how to do some of these things.
probably, and it,
Mhm. Without getting deep into like American football, which is just
oh
dumb
god,
anyway.
so
So I
much.
don't think I'll.
It's
I could handle soccer and baseball, maybe basketball if I really push it, but football, I'm sorry, I just can't
I
do
think you
American
could get
football.
into
It's dumb.
baseball. I think you could thrive with baseball friends. I
Yeah.
could see
I
that.
mean, yeah, one of my best
I
friends,
was gonna
Kyle
say
Rousseau, is
Kyle is
100% into baseball forever. Um, my have I stop me, listeners, if I've expressed this view on the
oh, yeah,
podcast
no,
before, but, like, every time
listeners, phone in. Just phone in right now is
phone
if
yeah,
Evan's
right
told
now.
you this before, phone in.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, we'll have a live feed available as this. But no, I anytime a football game starts, I'm interested enough through maybe like the first quarter, and I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of seeing how this is whatever you can get into kind of like tactical battlefield tactic things that you could kind of that I can kind of. But at a certain point, I'm just like, there's no dragons. Like I'm not
Who gives
interested
a shit?
anymore. Like
Who gives a
wouldn't
shit?
American football be so much better if just like dragons showed up
Dude,
every once in a while and just
dude,
ate half the players?
dude, would even I would even take it if like a Chinese dragon with like all the people inside of it. Just like not every game have to be fully random.
Slithered around
Just
the field.
and it was totally fine if the dragon got the football and then had to be taken seriously, but no body contact. I think that is
That would be awesome, actually. Yeah, see, we're improving football,
improving
so
it.
this is already great.
We're improving
Yeah,
it.
American football.
But
So anyway, so back to
so
Benny.
Betty has this poker game, and instead of betting money, they bet different things of like, I'm gonna bet a waffle iron I used once. I'm gonna bet a 1976 Chevelle starter engine or starter piece for an engine. I'm gonna bet yeah,
Right.
whatever, right? They have it on slips of paper. And
Yeah,
so
I love how the mechanics are just betting different parts of
I know,
automobiles.
like, okay. And so one
Alright.
of the guys uh is complaining that his cousin uh is like that is
Johnny
staying with
Depp.
him, that Sam.
I'm so mad. He's weird and he's way more attractive than I
Yeah,
am.
he's so weird and he's so strange and, like, I don't even know if he knows how to read. He doesn't. Um,
Or
or
right. I was like,
right!
oh,
I
Sam.
was like
Oh,
I was like,
no.
"Baby boy, dyslexia is a real, like, disability, like, you need help." Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so this guy, like, bets Sam as being like, "You take my cousin off my hands," and June is like,
Yeah.
"Totally reasonable. I will see you painting my
Yeah.
house." And then
I
she
love betting
loses,
human beings.
and then she
Yeah.
loses, and so Benny is, of course, like, "I'm not
The fuck?
I'm not taking," I think he's like, "You can't bet a human being. That is not a thing."
Reasonable stance to take, I
Again,
guess.
just why is my life surrounded by crazy people? Like, he's just like, "You cannot bet a human being," and June is like, "But I won him." And he's like, "I don't give
Yeah.
a shit. Like, you're not
Yeah.
taking him." And so finally
Yeah.
he does. He finally acquiesces and is like, "Sure, I'll have this strange, very hot young man stay in my house."
Sounds great.
Totally normal, which I think does beg the question, like, how normal is Benny? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Uh,
um, yeah, he's just like a tightly wound spring, you know? That's Benny. He's a
mhm.
tightly wound,
Definitely.
spring, and uh, like, he is a good man, and I think it's just that he's pushed past his abilities, and he's pushed past
Yeah.
his
He's taken on too
he's
much.
taken on too much, and that's okay, but, you know, he's not willing to recognize that, like, "Hey, maybe your mentally ill sister living with you isn't the best thing for either of you, and maybe this is actually, like, a
Right.
bad thing across the board." He's not
Yeah.
willing to look at that, like, he definitely has, like, a martyr complex a bit, um,
Mhm. Yeah. For sure.
you know, and
Yeah.
can
Moody as fuck.
moody as book. Also, let's talk about his absolute crippling inability to interact with people of the female gender really quick. Because you had a lot to say
Yeah,
about this, and I
absolutely.
did too.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about that a bit of my take on him. Yeah, later in the film, like they befriend the local waitress played by Julianne Moore. I don't
Ruthie.
remember
Her
her
name is
name.
Ruthie.
Ruthie. Ruthie, great. So Ruthie, just the hot, cute redhead down at the diner or whatever. Um, yeah, one after a date or two, she invites him into her place, just them, and, oh my god, Benny is like my first thought was like, "Have you never been in a woman's house
I don't think
before?"
so.
Like, he's just pacing around like he owns the place and, like, not sitting down. It's like, "Bro, she's sitting on the couch, sit next to her on the couch. That's all you need to do
I
right
know.
now." And he just like, things whatever." It's like, "Oh my god, you need to get your act together, dude."
Yeah, he just is incapable. And again, it's kind of that thing of like, yeah, dude, you've given up a lot in your life to care for your sister. Like, you've given up the possibility of romantic relationships, you've given up a lot of, like, external friendships, like, y
Yeah,
you're giving up a lot, and you're not able to, like, express that very well, and he's just like,
classic man shit, just
yeah,
hold on to it, never figure out a way to express
until
it.
it becomes colon cancer. Um, yeah, he
Yeah, that's
also
right. We don't need cigarettes to cause debilitating, life-altering cancers in our bodies. We've got repressed emotions.
we've got sadness. He also I would also beg the question I would also like, so like when so Benny has historically had like housekeepers, caretakers, like somebody basically to just kind of like watch June and make sure she again like
Mhm.
doesn't burn the house down. Like
Right.
literally, very very literally. And
They have that great, woman, at the very
Mrs.
beginning of the movie who's
Schmale!
got the most intense Irish accent I've ever
It's so
heard on
bad.
screen.
It's so bad.
Yeah, like, this woman's from New York
Yeah, it's horrendous, and
pretending to do an Irish accent.
yes. And so Benny is like that's kind of the other thing is that he's like, "Well, I need to find a new person to kinda just, like, watch June so I can go to work." And so he's like, "Hey, guess what? 2 birds, 1 stone. This lunatic who my sister won in a poker game, who lives with us
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
I'm just
The super hot and very weird stranger.
yes, the super hot, very weird stranger. I'm just gonna leave him alone with my
Uh-huh.
also super hot and very weird sister, and like nothing bad will happen.
Nothing can go wrong here.
No, that's crazy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Benny, come on, man. What are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
you have eyes.
What
You have eyes. Look at Mary
well,
Stuart
I think it's
Masterson, and then look at 1993 Johnny Depp and be like,
yeah. I think it's like yeah, and that speaks to the prejudice that I think a lot of, it's not mean-spirited necessarily, especially when it's, like, directed at your family members, but yeah, there's this kind of, like, prejudice that neurotypical people have
mm,
against, I
yeah,
don't know, the mentally ill or the mentally whatever, the differently abled, where they just there's sort of, like, this blanket assumption that, like, they can't fall in love or whatever,
yeah.
so, like, I think it's this thing where he's, like, and it's also a brotherly thing too, right? Like you're just sort of like they're my sister and I'm not, she's my sister
And
and I'm
that
not
could
gonna
never
like
possibly
whatever.
happen. And like, and I think that is,
Yeah.
and I do think that is true of like part of the reason that there is a lot of, a lot of people are not comfortable or not understand that like neurodivergence and mental illness, like they don't stop you from being a human. They just like add extra difficulty levels. Um to
Yeah.
like
Extra
yeah,
spiciness,
like we're all
a
playing
little bit of picante.
picante. Like everybody else is playing like the first level of the game, and then if you like have a neurodivergence or a mental illness, you're just like playing on like the hardest setting where like the bosses are like
Yeah, yeah.
figuring out how the toaster works. Um
It's like a beginning of a yeah, Doom, the video
yes.
game Doom, Doom, has a traditionally insanely hard, like, expert level difficulty level, so, like, yeah, that's you're on the screen, the menu screen of life, and, like, you're just like, "I think I'm gonna play this one on expert mode," and it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, everything is just getting really thrown at me."
Yes, and I think there is a bit of I don't think prejudice is the right word, but just not like
Yeah, but yeah, that was maybe
but
too
but there
far
is
to take
something
it.
of there is a something about neurotypical, mentally well, physically able people. There is a little bit of almost like
Mhm.
infantilizing of some way
Yeah.
with people that are kind of on a different living experience, and it can kind of be like, well, that's just not a thing that you people do, right? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
no, like we as humans, like generally, like we want love and connection and all of those things, and um, that doesn't stop if your like brain or body are different. It just looks
Yeah.
different for those folks. But
Yeah.
it it is very funny that I was like, I don't know that if I was in Benny's shoes, if I would be like the most appropriate person to like take care of my sister and like watch out for her is another very weird hot dude.
Right. It's like, I wonder what could possibly happen here. He's just like, nothing. I'm
Nothing. And it's
fine.
like,
I need to go get some groceries
I
or
know, and
whatever
it's
he
like,
has to go
look
do.
at them. They're gonna fuck. Like, what are you thinking?
Hmm.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. It's Johnny Depp, like get with the program.
1993 Johnny Depp. Holy shit.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Before Jack Sparrow even.
Look. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, that's Benny in a nutshell.
Yeah. In a
In a
nutshell.
nutshell,
Yeah, we have things to talk about, June.
Yeah, I have a lot to talk about with June. I feel like, unsurprisingly, in the same way that you were like, "I have a lot to say about Benny," I was like, "I have a lot to say about June," funny enough.
Yeah.
She Yeah, so she's just, like, again, the weirdest girl in the world who has ever weirded weird.
If yeah, I was gonna say, if Benny is the saddest boy to ever sad, you already said it, but yeah,
She's
June is the weirdest girl to ever weird.
She is. She also fixes problems with fire, as we were saying. I can't specifically endorse it, but it does sound, like, very fun in a scary way. Um,
Yeah,
y you
100%.
know, and, so we
I would love to solve all of my problems with fire.
You know what's great about Dungeons& and Dragons, especially if you're a spellcaster, is that
Magic missile?
no, you can solve all of your problems with fireball, and here's the fun thing, when you cast it at a really high level, you solve a lot of problems and then create 5 bigger new problems. It's great.
Every campaign needs the person who is unintentionally going to complicate the narrative even further, because that's how you have an interesting story.
Several years ago when I was playing a campaign with, Sean and some of our friends, he Sean, excuse me, they specifically said, uh if you could not use Fireball at a 6th level this game, it would be great. And I said, "Absolutely. I value your opinion
I
and and our relationship." And then what did I do? I cast Fireball at a 6th level in a closed room and I almost killed our entire party.
You're like, or you could argue that nothing interesting would ever happen without my level 6 fireball.
Precisely. Thank you so much. That's what I'm hearing. So
I'm bringing the pain, so to
so
speak.
to speak. So June, I
Portrayed by Mary Stuart
Mary
Masterson.
Stuart Masterson, who's also in Fried Green Tomatoes and other handfuls of, like, kind of 90s films, like really just sweet, great films. I've always loved her as an actor. I don't know what she's doing these days, honestly. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like I haven't seen her in a
Yeah, she's like everybody from this time period, she's looking older. She has a more updated IMDb picture, which I appreciate from actors. I'm just like, oh, good, you're not relying solely on your profile picture from
holy
1998 or whatever. But
fuck.
yeah, she's doing things, I guess.
She has stayed hot. Goddamn. All right.
Goddamn.
Anyways, so Mary Stuart Masterson, she's fantastic. I really love June as a character a lot. She
Yeah, describe more of what you
Okay,
identify with her about.
so uh so like we said, she's very artistic and also very, like, art
Artistic?
it's
Artistic?
AR and autistic.
Right, yeah.
She's emotionally artistic.
Porque no los
Porque no
dos.
los dos, you know what I'm saying? Um, she is clearly a very intelligent person and is a very interesting person and is interested in a lot of
Mhm.
things, and, like, that takes a lot of different avenues, but she is not a character that, like you were saying, like, she's not designed like, the world isn't designed for her. You know, the
Yeah.
world isn't really designed for her to thrive, nor is it
Mhm.
for most people who are mentally ill or neurodiverse. But
Right.
there's, like, certain foods that she eats. She only likes certain foods, which I was like, "Bestie, same." But
You're like, "Okay, on the checklist of things I identify with June on, like, has very specific foods that they like. Check."
yes, wears a snorkel mask while making a smoothie, which again, I was like, "That's very fun."
Check.
That's very fun, and I like that a lot. Um,
'Cause you don't know what the blender's gonna do. You're just like, anything could happen with this thing.
Anything can happen, and also there's a snorkel mask, so why don't I wear it in the kitchen? Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's, uh she does this is such a 1993 thing. She wears this
I know, so quirky.
no, no, what I was gonna say was, so after she makes a smoothie, she's wearing a snorkel mask with the snorkel thing in her mouth, right? So she's breathing through the snorkel.
Right. Because breathing is hard.
It's
Yeah.
hard. I get it. You want to make it more exciting sometimes. She's like wearing a dress. She has a fanny pack on, and then in the fanny pack, she stuffs a ping pong paddle, and then she just like leaves the house unattended. And then she is
Uh,
causing a traffic jam because she is standing in the middle of an intersection with the snorkel mask on and the paddle directing traffic. Um, very,
yes.
very 1993 because she's not immediately shot by the police that show up.
Right. Yeah. Well, she's a white lady.
She's
They would
she's
give her the
white.
time of day for at least a little while.
Right,
So,
exactly, exactly. But
sad.
and then she when she and Benny are driving over to the poker game in which she wins Sam, she's like wearing a motorcycle helmet in the car and is obviously
Yeah.
not pleased to not be at her house. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, yes. D- yes. Yes, queen." Um,
I understand
I
you. I
get
understand
you.
you. You never know what's gonna happen when you go over to another person's house. Sometimes it's just a little bit more secure if you bring your helmet,
Or
'cause any and whatever.
or you don't know what's gonna happen in the car because your fucking parents died in a car crash. So like if you wear a helmet, extra protection. You know what I'm saying?
That's actually pretty yeah, I hadn't even thought of that angle, but yes, it's
It's
just like, that yeah, that's even deeper characterization than I had thought to think of. I was
so
just like, "Oh, yeah.
the,
She got a lot on her
the
mind."
thing that I love about June and that I was like, I feel so like seen in this is she, like I was saying, she's obviously a very intelligent person. She's very like artistic and likes doing a lot of things. And
Mhm.
she has the thing that I think a lot of people who are on the spectrum have in common with kind of 4 or 5-year-old children, of where it's like
Mhm.
there's an internal logic, and this is true of
Mhm.
people with mental illness as well. Like there's like an internal logic that doesn't really make sense to other people, but it's like, no, that person could take you from like A to B to C to D to E, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, I would bet you that, like, if you ask the character June, like, "Why did you wear a snorkel mask and then go direct traffic with a ping pong paddle?" She'd probably be like, "Oh, I will tell you exactly why." Um, and then, like, go on
Yeah.
a description.
She has a logic to the decision. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not apparent maybe to other people, and it's maybe not always very safe, but there is a logic to it, and I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate that, like,
Yeah.
characterization because I was like, "Yeah, you know, sometimes you are cutting holes in a laundry basket and filling it with dirt, and people are like, 'What in the fuck are you doing, Mayor?'" Not a real life example at all. This didn't happen a few days ago, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, I've been obviously I'm using it to grow potatoes.
Yeah.
Duh."
Obviously. Yeah, that whole scene reminded me of, an instance in our lives where we had an experience together. It was not nearly as dangerous or anything like this, and maybe it really maybe the only connecting factor is that it was, like, a thing happening in public or whatever, but we were at a bookstore, years ago just checking out the children's book section, and there was like a child who came in and wandered in, and you fully on just like started engaging with them as one of the characters from the books, and we're like reading the book to them and doing the voices in this very quiet, quaint little bookstore that's full of like mostly old people looking at like geography books and shit like that. I was like, all right, we're just having a full on just interaction with this child and like standing here for like 15 minutes while they engage being excited about the thing that they both like, this Berenstein Bears book. And it was delightful,
Or
obviously.
like the
Yeah, but it
time
was definitely like,
uh
all right.
or the time like last year that we had dinner and then I ran through a bunch of fountains like a water pad with a bunch of kids and then I got
Oh, yes, that's
absolutely
actually a better example. I totally even forgot about that one.
and then I got
But yes, that happened.
absolutely
The rest of us were
soaking
like,
wet.
I Yes, the rest of us were like, "I think that I'll keep my clothes dry for the drive back home."
Yeah.
You're like, "La, la, la, la,
La,
la,
la, la, la,
it's
la.
water!"
I with water, and I was like
Like,
created a game with the
"Alright."
kids, and I got really cold. And no, I had only had one drink. I was not even drunk. I just thought
Right.
it would be really fun to run through a fountain, and I was like, why don't only kids get to have fun in public? I want to have fun in public. And anyway,
They get to get their clothes changed at home, why not
why not
me?
me? I've been grown up with a professional job and shit. Like I can do whatever I want. But yeah, she does have this very like indescribably weird and fun internal logic, which is one of those things that is like I can understand how frustrating that is for the person who is not that way. Um,
I'm sure you've had instances with other people and friends where you are the normal person and have to deal with the weirdness, and you're like, "Huh, interesting."
not really. It's pretty
No,
rare.
not a single instance in your life? Yeah.
There are some, but primarily I'm like, "Ooh, you're being weird. You should be weirder." What if we made it even
I
weirder?
think we can do more.
I think we can go
Yeah.
harder. But yeah, and there's just lovely little moments of her and especially her and Sam interacting that you
Mhm.
get the sense that part of the reason that she starts to take a shine to Sam is because he gets her in a different way that Benny never has. Um, and
Totally.
like, and that Benny can't in a lot of ways. Like
Mhm.
that's not
Yeah,
Benny.
he's not wired that
He's
way.
not
Yeah, they're not
wired that
gonna
way. And it's
Mhm.
and I can see it as like there is a certain amount of excitement and almost like healing of June meeting somebody that she's kind of like always used to being the weird one and is always used to being the one that people are like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then she meets somebody who she's
Mhm.
like, "Wait, you're weird and I don't get what you're doing. This is really interesting and exciting." And it's very fun.
Yeah, and I think it's like that when anybody falls in love. You get that sort of sense that, "Oh, this person gets me in a way that I haven't felt, gotten before."
Yeah, and it's an important thing, and I think it's especially important with like people who are mentally ill or neurodivergent or whatever that like there is a certain commonality and a certain common language and experience that they get immediately. And she also June is
I think I
just so
wrote that in my
sassy.
notes
She's so
somewhere.
sassy.
She's a sassafras,
She
100%.
she's a sass cat. She's at one point she tells Benny, "Don't underestimate the mentally ill. We can still count." I was like,
Slay.
slay queen. She and Benny or she and Sam, excuse me, describe what was it? They're talking about raisins on tapioca pudding and why June
Oh, yeah.
doesn't like raisins on tapioca pudding, and she calls them
Mhm.
humiliated grapes. And I was just like, "Yeah. Yeah, girl."
Damn right. I was that sidebar, that was exciting to me because having worked in stop motion as long as I have, I know a lot of people who worked on that California
Oh,
Raisins stop
really?
motion ad campaign. So I'm like, oh, they're talking about the California Raisins campaign. So shout out Eric Adkins and all my
Shout
people
out
who worked
Eric.
on the Raisins ads back in the day.
Yeah, and
This particular character in this movie was not a fan.
no, not a fan, and it just and then, like, Sam ends the conversation with, like, "It's a real shame about raisins." And June is like, "It is, yeah." I was like,
You know it, buddy.
yeah," and I was just like, "Dating would be so much easier if it was like this."
If people just understood my odd takes on
If
raisins, you
people could
know?
just engage and also had opinions, that's all I'm
I
asking.
liked I like I really hope that everybody has some version of an odd opinion like that they can share. You
I
know, it does
do
not
too.
necessarily have to be fruit related, but like for instance, my favorite fruit is oranges, and I love the way oranges taste. I'm a fan of citrus, but my favorite thing about the orange is that it is the most easily shared fruit. I
Oh,
like that you can
interesting.
pull it apart and give
It
people
is.
an orange slice, and it's sort of like ready made to be a communal fruit
Oh, that's
experience, you know,
true.
and
That
like that
is
is one of my
fun.
favorite things about the orange. Also, they're just delicious. And there was one time when I was walking to a concert, high on a hallucinogen, and had an orange peel, and was like, why am I wasting all of the rest of this orange? And I just started eating the peel, and it was very zesty. I was like, ooh, I feel alive. I'm like, yeah. I was like, just instantly like woke me up in a way. And I was like, why am I not always eating orange peels? This is awesome. Uh, haven't done it since, but it was
I
great.
mean, that sounds like a fantastic experience. Um,
It was
yeah, that
great.
sounds fucking great. And I do. I love, yeah, oranges are great because they're easily shared. Can't share a banana like
Yeah,
that.
not really. No, not the, I won't go there.
Not a
Dildo banana.
dildo banana, dildo banana. Um,
Um, yeah, do you have any more interesting takes on, June to share? I think that we can
I
I
love
don't know,
her.
you let me know.
I love her and I want her
Yeah,
life. She makes art. She's sassy to everybody. She gardens. She only eats specific foods. She lives in a great house. I want her life. I don't know how I get it, but I want it.
yeah, I'm gonna make it happen. Man, their house, I'm just like, where can you afford this beautiful two-story fucking Victorian that is right next to a river? It's like such a Hollywood, like these people, this
Yeah.
guy's a mechanic. Like,
I was like,
I assume they
they
inherited it from their
inherited it from
parents, but
their
still, I was like,
parents.
God damn, that is a nice
I know,
house.
but also like it looks crazy inside. Like it's
It does.
the
Well, what do you
the
expect? I
production
mean,
the production design is great because it is
yeah,
a
they did a great
it
job
is a
with it.
gorgeous house, and there's also just like things where like the bottom of the kitchen cabinets just have like paint swatches on them and like or things that are like I just created an art thing and now it's just in the middle of the kitchen. And it really speaks to the thing of like uh if it's not hurting anybody and it's not causing an active problem, like you can just tell the
Mhm.
character wise Benny has just been like I can't fucking I don't whatever. I can't. Like that is a battle
I don't know.
in the same way that, when I was about 5 and it was pouring rain outside in, like, December in Northern California, and mom and I
Mhm.
were at the fabric store, and I was wearing, sandals. Pouring rain, it's, like, 45 degrees outside, whatever, uh,
Right.
wearing sandals. And that
Yeah.
had been
I left my boots in my other reality, I'm sorry.
well, it was more like, um, let's say the compromise was sandals between our mother and myself.
Between something that could protect your feet and not wearing anything at all,
Yes,
the compromise was
that was
sandals.
exactly what happened.
Meredith had a great propensity to never want anything on their
I
feet as a small
hate
child. Every single thing you could put on Mare's feet, socks, sandals, shoe, it was too tight. Too
too
tight.
tight,
I remember
too
that
tight.
that felt like the main refrain of your entire young
I fucking
childhood.
hated wearing shoes, and the woman at the Joanne Fabric or wherever that we were at, like, looked at mom and was like, "You know, your kid should really be wearing rain boots," and I remember, mom,
The exasperated sigh that came out of our mother.
our mother looked at this woman and said, "If you can get rain boots on that child, go for it."
The lady was like, "Challenge not accepted. I walked into a whole situation that I don't wanna be part of."
Mom was just like, "It's this child is wearing shoes." technically this
Yeah.
child is wearing a
Bitch.
shoe, bitch. Like,
The bottom of their feet are protected from the ground. That's as much as I can handle today.
We'll be right back with more Brother Sibling Movie.
So we've discussed Benny and Joon, but despite being the titular characters, there is one more very important piece of the puzzle of this movie, and that is the ever attractive, surprisingly weird hunko candy known as Johnny Depp, who portrays Sam in this movie, who is also neurodivergent,
he
mentally
is
ill, something also never defined, but
he
loves
is
Buster Keaton.
he is a poster child for someone with ADHD and like really intense and really intense dyslexia, I feel like.
Oh yeah, totally. He is. You know what? That I will accept that non-scientific diagnosis because he definitely seems like a person who has a really intense interest in one thing that he loves and can't quite find a way to focus on anything else that comes his way in his life. So like it turns out he really likes physical comedy, like knowing how to do it with no particular prospects as to how to turn that into
He
a
just
money making endeavor.
I
He's just like, I like being a
and
goofball in public.
and he just is so again, he's just so ADHD because he's always like zipping zapping zapping, like kind of always
Yeah,
just like a bit weird and is like very like in the moment and present all the time and like doesn't
yeah,
really have a plan per
yeah.
se.
No, I know. It's the Johnny Depp memoir, if it doesn't exist yet, is something that is really will be really interesting for me to read one day because I
Seriously.
mean, it's Johnny Depp. Like, look, today he has a very particular kind of what's the right word I'm looking for? Like patina or like, I think that in our current climate of 2025, like we all are kind of like over Johnny Depp a little, partially because of the personal stuff that has happened with him in his life and
I was
Amber
gonna say
Heard and being the
he's had
widow.
recent troubles.
Yeah. But also just within the context of the movies he's made, being the wonder child and best friend of Tim Burton, you're kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
like we all know your thing. Like I think a lot of people are kind of like over Johnny Depp in these days, but like this movie and his early stuff reminds you like whatever you think about him as a person or like the stuff that he does, he's really fucking good actor. you
He
know,
I
like
was
he 100% gets deep into like a character thing and like I think there are other people who do the thing that he's tried to do a little bit better, like Gary Oldman just like it does the same thing where he takes crazy characters but he gets like even deeper, but like Johnny Depp is still an incredible character actor and knows how to imbibe
it's
something that people like. He is weird for sure, but he's not always just weird for weirdness' sake, which is probably what people don't like about stuff later in his career. But early on, I'm just like, he's exploring and finding these things. And I don't know. It just reminded me what a great actor he is.
yeah, this movie and like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, like there is again, it is one of those things of like regardless of how you feel about Johnny Depp now and in the context of him and his more recent work, like man, a goddamn talented actor. Like,
hmm I will
you
say
know,
that maybe not as talented as Buster Keaton, but he does,
no,
but he imitates Buster Keaton's style super well, and it's very impressive to watch. Like nobody does it like Buster, but Johnny Depp comes pretty close in this
he
movie.
he comes pretty close. Actually, on that note, in the last little bit in the credits at the end, it said physical comedy sequences choreographed by Dan Kamen. I
That's
don't know how you
cool.
pronounce
Yeah,
his name.
that would
And
make sense if they had somebody specifically on that job.
yeah, and so this guy Dan Kamen has basically like spent his career being a student. He's written books about Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton.
Mhm.
He's
Oh,
kind of like an
cool.
early film aficionado, and he's choreographed other like physical comedy stuff in movies. But I thought it was interesting that
Mhm.
because it is such a specific type of choreography that they like specifically called out like the person, like, hey, we got one person who like really did the physical comedy aspect of it, because it is, I think, Johnny Depp's like Sam, the character, um, is yeah, he has this special interest. He has this special interest in like old movies,
Mhm.
and cinema and physical comedy, and
Yeah.
wants you
Oh,
get
yeah,
the
he tries to get
sense.
a job at the video store, which was a cute.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, proclaimers, fucking young, like, woman painting in a house, like, applying for a job at the video store. Hello, 1990s."
Hello, what
You
is
got it
up? It's
all.
here. Um, and Johnny Depp's like the character of Sam, you get the sense it's like this is a character who probably barely made it through school, whose
Yeah.
parents probably didn't know what to do with him,
Mhm.
who has a hard time getting or
Uh,
keeping a job.
yes,
But like
I knew a lot of these people in high school.
I did too.
They're my
And
best
but it's
friends.
yeah, I was gonna say they were my friends too. And it was like a but it's the thing of there is a certain amount of heart in the character of Sam, of like
Mhm.
he just kind of doesn't get why he's not good at stuff, or like he just kind of doesn't understand like the
Right,
way the
Sam sees
world works.
himself. Yeah, yeah, maybe a difference between Sam and June as characters is that, like, June knows she's different. She's been told it her whole life seemingly, and Sam
And has been
doesn't think he's
very
different.
yes, and like June has been very pathologized like for a long
Mhm.
time. And I think you're totally right. Sam doesn't know that he's different, or he does, but he's like, but not that different, right? And
Right.
he's
It's normal to sit in a bathtub and end up crashing on a couch at a stranger's house that they procured me in a game of poker.
right,
Normal
exactly.
shit
Totally
going on.
normal shit. And it's sort of the thing of yeah, like he just is sort of this character who's like, I want to do the right thing, and I want to show up, but like I just don't know why I have to do it in this particular way, or like I just don't understand why like I can't why people can't be like have more fun every day, or like why
Yeah.
it's kind of the I would say it's an analog, like we were talking about like early 2000s rom-coms. It's like the analog to a manic pixie dream girl, but uh
He's a manic pixie dream
in a
guy.
way he kind of
The
is,
difference
because he's just
in a
weird.
more patriarchal yeah, the difference in a patriarchal kind of Hollywood film is that for there to be a manic pixie dream guy, the woman he falls in love with has to be even crazier than him.
Precisely. um and
Women don't get
and it
cool, interesting people to fall in love with unless they are also
no,
even
no, no.
weirder than that person.
I also feel it's so there's a point at which, June and Sam, uh, like they're falling in love,
Mhm.
and in this very kind of like quiet, awkward, not quite sure what to do, because it's pretty obvious no one has ever understood the other like that before, or been interested in them like that before. So it is like very
Yeah.
sweet. It's very sweet the way that Sam and June's relationship is this sort of like stuttering thing that's very like they're not quite sure, but they want
Mhm.
to, but they're not, but they've never really done this before or whatever, even though
Yeah.
they're like in their late 20s, mid-late 20s.
I know. I had that thought too, where I'm like, I suddenly realized like everybody in this movie is probably like 30 years old, and it made me furious. It's like, fuck.
Fuck you
Benny
guys.
Benny looks like such a fucking adult in a way that I can't even imagine, and I'm like fucking 7 years older than him, probably. I'm assuming.
Yes, and but their relationship is really sweet in the way that it develops, and it develops in this like they kind of freak each other out at first in the way that I think a lot of
Oh
like
yeah, there's a scene early on where like June comes downstairs in the morning and like Sam has cleaned the entire house, and she like freaks out and is like, "Get out!" And then Benny comes home and is like, "This house looks incredible." And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Where's Sam?" She's like, she describes how she got like freaked out, and he's just
she
looking
like
at her.
freaked out and was
She's like, "What did he do?" And she's like, "Well, he's like put everything away and swept and like dusted and stuff." And he's like, "So he cleaned the house and you sent him away." And the look on his face just was another Benny moment that I totally identified with. He's like, "You crazy bitch. What the hell is wrong with you?" Like, keep him around forever.
keep him here.
Yeah.
Yes. I also I just did the math. Aidan Quinn was 34 in this film, and Mary Stuart Masterson was 27.
How old was she?
She was 27 and Aidan Quinn was 34 in this film.
Okay. There you go. That seems about the right age difference that they have in the
But
movie, for sure.
that I think that was about the right age, and I think is it possible? And Johnny Depp was 30 in this film. He was 30 years old.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes sense.
but so anyway, makes sense. It's very cute. And the
I really
what was
like the
the
way that they play that love scene, like their first kiss.
yeah.
It's very like I haven't seen a kiss done like that. I especially like that they don't immediately go for the lips. They kind of like go other places, you know, it's like it was
Yeah.
like watching two animals kind of like get comfortable with each other,
Like
you know.
kind of like nuzzling and like not quite being
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I don't wanna like I don't wanna cross a boundary, but I like you, but
Totally.
also I
That seemed
don't,"
like
you know?
that seemed like the kind of scene that the actors brought something to, you know, where they were like,
Yeah.
"Well, if we're the type of people that don't have a lot of interactions like this, like what would we actually do?" You know, how I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
It maybe it's written into the script, but even if it is, you can't get into the specifics like that of how you actually play the scene. So that one struck
Yeah.
me as like, good
And
job, actors. Like that felt really real in a way that I hadn't seen like a those type of people having a love interaction. I hadn't seen that on film before,
yeah, and
or
it's
can't
also like
remember a time that I had.
well, and the other thing about that, when they're like, getting down and dirty for the first
Mhm.
time, uh, it's also not something that you see with adults doing that. Like sometimes you'll see like in films or books or whatever, teenagers maybe where it's like, oh, this is my first kiss and it's
Yeah,
awkward and whatever.
true. Anybody where
But
there's still a bit of innocence associated with, connecting
yes.
with another person or naivete or whatever.
But I think that makes sense though that it's similar for them even though they're older and they're, adults, they still have that kind of naivety and they have that eh, unsure aspect of that
Yeah.
interaction. And the other thing that I was going to say is so that we alluded to when so after they have sex, after they have sex and Benny finds out, Benny loses it. He totally
Oh, he
flies off
freaks
the
the F
handle.
out, yeah,
He freaks
mhm.
the fuck out in a way that I was like, "My dude, what did you think was gonna happen? Please calm down. Just because 'cause you're not getting
Yeah.
laid doesn't mean that they shouldn't be getting any, Don't take
Yeah,
it out on them."
He's very sexually frustrated. He's just like, I don't know how to talk to women, and they offer me beers, and I freak out about getting committed.
Oh my god!
I understand, Benny. I get it. Yeah,
we get it.
Just
we
like,
all been
you want to
there.
come in and have a beer? There's beer waiting for you. He's like, I'm just going through a lot of stuff right now. Like, I don't know how serious I could be. Like, chill the fuck out, dude. I just invited you in to have a beer.
I offered you for a beer. Calm the fuck down, you moody sad boy. So
good.
So what happens after that is that, Benny kicks Sam out of the house and loses his mind and has this big reaction. And so Sam comes back and kind of and basically he and June make this plan to run away together. And again, it's a very like teenagers running away together. It's not thought out. It's not
very much.
There's no planning. It's very simplistic.
Yeah. It's like, what happens after the ending of The Graduate?
That's literally exactly what I was thinking.
What happens after that scene? And it's like one or both of them freak out and are like, fuck!
Fuck, we fucked up so hard. But what I think is a great moment of characterization because Sam even at some point is telling Benny, like, I don't think June is that sick. Like, I think you think she's a lot.
Sweet baby child.
Sweet baby child. Sam is like, I think you think she's sicker than she actually is. And Benny's kind of like, trust me, no.
Haha, lol, very funny.
Lol, very funny, not the case. But what happens is you can kind of see, Sam's like positivity and naivete and all of this when they're on the bus and June actually June starts to have a psychotic break. She starts to have a complete like meltdown, breakdown, whatever. And Sam is trying so hard, but it's like nobody in this moment has the resources that they need. Like
totally.
June does not have the resources to manage a stressful new situation. And Sam does not have the toolkit to like help her in any way or even really understand because he's seen her when she's pretty stable. Like he's mostly seen her when she's like, oh, she's doing okay.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking because you're like, Sam, honey, no, your love is not going to fix mental illness. That is not what's going to happen here.
True. Reminds me of all of my relationships. Neither of us are equipped to handle what the hell we're going through right now.
How fucking dare you say that right when I took a drink? I was so close to spraying water everywhere across my equipment.
Sorry, it's just my life. So glad it's funny to you.
Oh God. If our lives are not funny to each other in all of their horrendous ludicrousy and tragedy, like, I don't know what we're doing here, man. I totally. Just don't know. But yeah.
So to take the rest of the sort of, this is kind of near the climax end of the movie. So yeah, June has an episode on the bus. Benny comes to kind of like deal with the situation, but it's gotten out of control enough that they take her to the hospital and Sam goes with her. But essentially June, because this episode has occurred to her, gets into the hospital, the institute, whatever it is. I can't tell. Anyway. And she basically decides like,
it's a psych
ward. Yeah. She wants to sort of just be alone and handle herself. She's like not taking visitors. She won't see Benny. She won't see Sam.
Yeah.
And Sam and Benny have a bit of a blowout where they are like, screw you, you don't understand. He's like, you try to take my sister away, you stupid idiot. And they have literally, to me, like the shortest like come to Jesus montage where like it's like, oh, here's 10 shots of each of them moping around and being sad about the situation and being like, I fucked up. And then literally the first scene after that is like, okay, let's go get her out. Like, I feel like you should have let a little bit of room to breathe because you both just exploded at one another. And now you're like, but now we're a cool team who's going to break June out of the psych ward.
Which
So
is
that
also
was a little like,
don't
you could have given that a little bit more space, but okay,
which
cool. Well,
it's also like don't break people out of psych wards, kids. Don't do that.
yeah.
They
And I don't think that, and to be fair, I think they're not
they
going to
did want
break
to
her out.
talk to her.
Benny
They
just
wanted
wants
to
to
talk
talk to
to her.
her. Yeah. Yeah.
They
So they
want to
go
talk
on
to
a,
her
yeah.
on an
So they go on
adventure.
a,
I think
yes.
what did I write in my oh yeah, sad boy and Looney Tunes to the rescue. As a general rule, I would say don't break into a mental
Oh,
ward, but
man.
this is also very sweet in a 90s way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. It's like Eeyore and Daffy Duck are like, let's get the crazy one out. Let's break
Precisely.
in. So they have a lovely moment breaking into the psych ward and getting up to the front, and Sam like sacrifices himself to like
Yes.
the
The orderlies.
the orderlies, and gives himself up so Benny can find his way to his sister's room, and he talks to her. They have their heart to heart, at which point we get the I suppose iconic scene of this movie where
Oh my
Sam
god.
somehow has gotten out of the
Well, because
way of the orderlies.
one of Benny's friends works at the mental institution as an orderly, and so
That's right.
Benny's friend
Oh, thank you. I forgot
sees
about that.
him being
Hmm.
carried by the orderlies, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! This is my patient. This is my patient. Like, I'll take him back. I'll take him back." And then he's like,
Yeah.
"You need to leave, like
Yeah.
now.
Get out of here,
Get
you
the fuck
crazy
out of
person.
here, you crazy person." And then Sam is like, "I know what the most realistic thing to do is. I will scale the side of this building and then sit on like a painter's ledge thing and like swing around in front of June's window so that she knows I am here because I
Yes.
have
That
ADHD and
that
don't think
literally
through my choices."
that literally seems to be like the idea behind it. Like, I'll let her know I'm here too.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because also, like, June has her own thing where she's like, I know my brother loves me and I know that we'll be okay, but like, I freaked out in front of like the boy that I like. And I think
Yeah.
that was probably, and I think that was probably
We've
too
all
much
been
for
there,
him.
June.
Oh, June, look, sometimes we freak out in front of the person that we like and it goes well, and then sometimes it doesn't. Um, so yeah, it's a very sweet, like funny visual gag kind of
Yeah.
thing. But also that is the scene at which Benny and June are talking to June's doctor, and it's kind of like Benny for the first time is basically saying like, "Hey, I think I might need to like loosen the reins a little
Yeah.
bit." And I think that is actually I think that might be what's best for you because I think I'm holding too tight and I don't think it's helpful for you.
Yeah, and that's the part of the movie that I liked a lot and identified with, where it was like, oh, right, like this movie is not, this movie's not just necessarily like rom-commy popcorn affair of like two quirky people, blah blah blah, getting
Falling in
together.
love.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's a nice story about two, especially centered around siblings. It's like a story about one sibling recognizing that, like, being enmeshed and being codependent is bad, and that he needs to give himself some space to breathe and
Yeah.
live his own life, which would be the best thing for both of them. And another sibling learns that despite the the handicaps that they have, they do have a way of living a life that can be fulfilling, even outside the
Yes.
norms, and that they can be independent in that way. And yeah, I really like these days. I really like stories about people recognizing how to be functionally independent and still loving to each other.
Yes, and that okay, so I want to kind of move into the final thoughts takeaways section if we could, since
Totally.
that's one of the
Yeah.
other
Let's
things. Okay.
get into it. I feel like we've
Yeah.
discussed our characters and we sort of, yeah.
Yeah, we've
Oh, yeah.
talked
And
a
then
lot about the plot.
and then, yeah. And to round it out, the movie ends with Benny dating the waitress, and Sam and June kind of like doing arts and crafts together in the house while the Proclaimers plays. So nice
And it's
little,
cute. And it's
a
cute
good
and
little
fun, and it's great.
storytelling, babies. Yeah.
It's cute. Um, okay, so the first thing that I want to start talking about is why the movie is called Benny and June, which I
Oh
think is
yeah.
interesting. And I kind of want your take on this too, because this is not, it is a rom-com, but
Hmm.
Benny and June are the siblings, right? They're not
Right.
the love interest.
Hmm.
And I think it is really cool to have a film that is like about the relationships that we have in our lives with the people that we love, some of which are
Hmm.
romantic and some of which are not romantic, but like that Benny and June's relationship does feel like that is sort of the emotional core of the film as opposed to a romantic relationship, right?
Absolutely. Even more than any of the other movies we've watched in this so far. I mean,
Yeah.
Totoro comes close, but Totoro's about kids, right? It's not about more
It's about
adults,
children.
things that you
Yeah.
learn, This is definitely one where the entire fabric of the movie hinges on these two being brother and sister,
Yeah.
because they need to learn how to be essentially like, you know, they are it's like a brother sibling relationship, right? Or a sibling relationship. Like they obviously love each other very much, but because of that, like, familial bond, they aren't letting themselves experience other aspects of life. They aren't allowing
Yes.
themselves to fall in love and have romantic partners. It's a different kind of love that is also part of the human experience. So in being hung up in the parts of that relationship that are like unhealthy, they aren't allowing themselves, either of them in their own ways, to kind of like have a more deeper, more open human experience. So it's great that they learn how to do that throughout the course of the film, because it's a very specific kind of relationship, and one that you don't see represented too often even today.
And
So I really
especially in
like that they
that
did that.
and especially in that way where it's like it's not, the parent saying like, "I hate your new boyfriend, blah blah blah," like or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
It is this very, cuz sibling relationships are interesting in that way because you're peers.
Yeah.
You're like June's parents died. So did Benny's. Like
Hmm. And
they
yet you
both
are also keeping track of each other in the way that a parent might, because
yeah.
that's the only other, like, prototype for interacting with your sibling that you have, except you are peers and you are equals, in many ways.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, it's forming out where the boundary lines are for your relationship is fun and interesting to explore in a movie, for sure, because it's like not typically explored in that way.
Yeah, and
And
it's
I think that there's so many movies that represent it as like either siblings fighting all the time,
yep,
or like in Pleasantville, where it's like they fight and then you don't
they're
really see
fine.
how either of them develop together, and then they're just like
Yeah.
fine at the end. So this one actually has a great little arc of their relationship each of them getting over an issue that they have and coming to a new homeostasis or whatever.
Yeah, and it is. It's beautiful to be like, "Hey, maybe we can go back to being siblings as opposed to having
Right.
this like enmeshed, contentious relationship. We can go back
Hmm.
to some or relearn or create some version of us being siblings and being peers." Which I really love.
Totally.
And I I also do, I just think this is such a cute movie. It's really sweet. Um it feels like if it was made today, it 100% would be like an indie movie, like
Mhm.
a small budget,
Or they would take this movie, the plot of this movie, and like put it on top of like superheroes so that there's
Sure,
action happening
sure,
while other,
sure.
they're like,
It
wouldn't
could
it
go
be
one
cool?
of two
It's like,
ways.
right. It's like the Avengers meets Benny and June. I could see somebody saying that
That would
is
be
like,
amazing.
because the Black Widow movie was all about like a
Sisters.
family coming back together.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
exactly.
I
I
could
mean,
see somebody
Thor.
pitching that, and be like, what if Benny and June had like action sequences?
Right, exactly. And it's um and I think it's also I think there is something to be said for June's mental disorders not being specifically named. That leaves it a little open to
Yeah,
interpretation, and that leaves it a little like
that's true. That's a
which
nicer reading than I had.
I
I was like, just tell me what she has, damn it.
but I think the benefit of not specifically saying she has schizophrenia or I mean, I
Mhm,
think they say it like once in passing, but it's not the focus. I
mhm.
think that does help the audience not pathologize the character, right? Because
That's
it's like
true. I hadn't thought about that.
because if you kind of have a preconception of somebody who is autistic or somebody who has bipolar disorder or somebody who has
Yeah.
schizophrenia
And you
or
don't
someone
know
who
them
has
as people, you just know their diagnosis.
yeah, and you're not seeing the actual challenges that that presents in their everyday life and the fear and the anxiety and the discomfort. You're not seeing the
Mhm.
human aspects of it, you're seeing, like, the DSM-5 version of
Right.
them.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you are put nicely into a little category that I can
Yes,
understand.
and that I can, like, understand and then, like, ignore because, like, you are your diagnosis, and that is all that is important about you, as opposed to
Yeah,
being
see,
like this impacts you in really real ways, and it impacts the people in your life in very real ways that is
mhm,
not captured in diagnostic criteria, and that is not
totally.
captured by, like, a medication management plan.
Yeah.
It is a much more holistic way to look at it, and I think while, like, it was a little, like, "Just tell me what she has," I can understand and see the benefit of not focusing solely on that because it's like ultimately that's just a diagnosis. It's about like how she manages herself and how Benny interacts with her and how she interacts with the world and like how all of those pieces come together because like even if you said like because if you're just viewing people as a like you're schizophrenic, that can mean 100 different things to 100 different people, right? With the exact same
Yeah.
diagnosis who fit the diagnostic criteria. But that's not the human element, that's not, like, the heart
Yeah.
of what
You
that
make
person is experiencing.
assumptions.
Yeah, you make assumptions and you can kind of it's a little easier to write them off in some ways, I think, on a
Yeah,
broad, like, societal scale.
totally. Yeah, I think my, issue with it while I was watching it was just sort of like, it wasn't about the character so much, it just felt like, "Oh, this is a movie from the '90s," where, like, they just didn't
Mm,
care to mention what it was, where it's like, it just feels like
I could see
the
that,
thing
yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
worried about was like, are they being lazy filmmakers and writers to just be sort of like, she has this kind of like thing that makes her quirky but also dangerous, and we don't really care to do the research to know what
Yeah.
we're representing on screen accurately, which is like also problematic. And yeah, the more you talk about it, the more I'm like, okay, I can see for exactly those reasons. Like there is some, because like Silver Linings Playbook made 15 years later from this movie is like very specifically like these people have
He has bipolar
bipolar personality
disorder.
disorder, and it's like a movie about that. So you're right, like it becomes about that in a way where it's like this is a relationship rom-com movie,
Yeah.
but like it's about uh bipolar personality disorder, right?
Right.
And that became a big part of the marketing. And I don't know if that's good or bad in its case, but it became a thing. And but it was also a point when we were trying as a society to start to educate more people about the specifics of things, but you're totally right. I can see the case being made for like, oh yeah, like leaving it kind of broad makes you focus on this woman and her struggle as a person, less on how she
Yeah,
is
not
diagnosed by the world.
right, exactly. It becomes more personal and a little less of a category. And I think, I think both things can be true.
Mhm.
Representation is always important and naming things is always important. I don't think that it would have added anything to Benny and June if we had like specifically known an exact diagnosis for like any of the characters.
Yeah.
Um
It also pegs it in its time and place, right? Like this was where, and it's I always think of the history of movies in that way. Like this is
hmm,
where we were at in 1993. Like this is as far as this was where we were comfortable describing this thing that not everybody in America had direct experience with. And this is sort of where, as a society, we were comfortable, where a studio was comfortable putting the 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 marker of like, this is what
yeah.
we're willing to discuss. This is what we think people are going to accept talking about right now. So it is interesting because you can then track over the course of more movies getting made over the years, like where were we at as far as like the discussion of mental health and mental health
Yeah.
awareness and things like that. So I'm
And it
glad that this movie exists within its time period and what it's willing to talk about.
yes, exactly. And I think that is kind of ultimately the thing because it is not about yeah, it's not about treating the it's not about like treating the mental illness specifically. It's about two imperfect people like learning how to make the best of the situation that they've been given and finding
Yeah,
love for each other and then romantic love outside of that. But it's ultimately like,
totally.
hey, Benny, you're also like not doing great. And I bet you have never processed any of your grief and trauma. I'm just gonna
That's why you
put that
go at
out
work. I
there
mean,
as a thought.
that's also a cool thing. I hadn't thought about this either, but like his whole thing is fixing cars, right? He's a mechanic and his parents
It's
died
like
in a
a
car crash. So
simple,
like
fixable,
maybe
no
he feels like he can fix that traumatic experience
yeah.
by working on cars. And of course June
Ooh.
has the helmet in the car thing which you mentioned, but I was like, I can't I can't fix the emotional hurt that has gone on here, but I can fix cars, you know. It's like a discrete problem, a
Yeah.
very guy kind of thing to do, but also the
Yeah.
fact that he is. I never thought about that until just now, but yeah,
I know, I
maybe
hadn't
the
either.
screenwriter thought it was kind of like a fun little thing to be like, well, he's trying to fix cars because he can't like fix the car that killed his parents, but he can fix other cars.
Yeah, he can do this version of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Should we move into something else?
Should we move into perhaps a specific
Tambok na
Part.
60. Tambok na 60.
vibe check? Time for a vibe check.
Vibe check.
So, for those of you who might be
Chivek.
listening, Chivek? Ooh, a
Chivek.
Chivek. Chivek.
Sounds good.
For, for
Russian
those of
dictator
you,
Chivek.
Chivek. Sounds like a chess star of the 60s. Like,
Yeah, that's
probably was in the Queen's Gambit.
yeah.
For those of you who might be listening for the very first time, first of all, thank you so much for making it through. Um, but Evan and I do not rate movies on a star system or a number system. We rate films on two things and two things only, and that is how is the story, and how are the vibes. So
That's right.
Evan, how is the story? How are the vibes?
You know, this movie gives off, I mean, I like the story. It's not, you know, as far as it's not a super complicated plot. The thing that makes it interesting as a story, I think, is the exploration of these types of characters that up until that point, as far as I know, were not sort of seen in movies. So this kind of the kind of quirky weirdos and not making them. I mean, you can make a mm, argument that like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from the mid 70s
That's
deals with
very
mentally ill people
different.
and stuff like that, but very different. Yes, this is like a person who is leading close to a normal life who happens to have mental illness problems, and it's different than a drama. It's like a romantic comedy about these things. So yeah, it's a simple story. It's not complicated, but that works to its benefit because the parts of it that make the most that you are emotionally connecting to are the characters and the issues that they're dealing with and going through. And then vibes, like, yeah, this is, you know, on first watch, I was definitely like, oh, this fucking quirky bullshit, like this fucking 90s,
You
like blah blah blah. We're
you
so cutesy and
you
so
know what?
whatever, and the quirks are just oh, this guy wants to work at a video store, but he can't write. It's like,
Evan
okay.
Evan like shot from the 3-point line and then took the big cooler of fucking Haterade and threw it over his body and was just like, dunk on this, fuck you.
And
In
then
a way
in my
that
notes,
was like,
yes.
I was like, dude, it's not that deep. Like, what the fuck?
No, it's not. But you know, I will say this, like, it's a similar, I think, watching it through just on my own. And like I said, as soon as I finished the movie and I had my whatever quippy quips to say to myself, I was like, I really enjoyed that. So I don't hate this movie. It's just while
No,
I
you
was
like
watching it,
really
I was
liked
having like
it.
an immediate like emotional reaction to the things
You're
I
like,
was seeing on
oh, these
screen.
cute are falling in love. It's all a lie. Fuck you.
I hate them. Um, but where was I going with that?
You're talking about vibes?
Yes, so yeah, vibes. I mean, I think that okay, so in a similar way to like so like the first time I saw Caddyshack, right? I was like I didn't laugh at all because I was like I've seen this movie before. Like I've seen all these jokes. I get
Right.
the humor, like but afterwards I was like, but the reason that I love the Happy Gilmores and the like
Is
the sort of
because
sports comedy movies that came after it of these sort of like juvenile men in these spaces is like, oh, that all started with Caddyshack. So
right,
in a
exactly.
similar way, like I'm like, oh, all these quirky weirdos, like the fucking Garden States and the Junos and the I can't think of other good examples, but there's so many, right? Like I was like, I've seen all this before, but upon reflection, I'm like, but all of that might have been started by Benny and Joon. So like,
Yes.
I shouldn't hate the progenitor of this quirky thing. Like of its time, it was doing something important and interesting. So yeah, as far as vibes, like, yeah, good vibes, man. Good vibes.
I love that. Yeah, I think for me, the story is uncomplicated,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're looking at it like plot point wise, it's not it's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Um but it's good. Like it's enjoyable to watch, and really what sells this are the characters and the actors portraying those characters and their physicality and their
Mm-hmm.
interactions and their relationships. Like that's what really sells the film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this story is a very simple but sturdy frame to hang all of that on, right?
Upon which to hang the vibes.
Upon which upon which to hang the vibes.
Yes.
And
Jane Eyre, tell us more about your itinerant vibes.
please, darling, I'm Charlotte Bronte if I'm anybody. I'm so, so sad. Or Emily Dickinson. Oh, she was American. Um,
Emily Dickinson, all vibes.
Emily Dickinson is exclusively vibes. My
Yeah.
God. But no, I
All
think
the
this movie,
feels.
all the feels. I think this movie, like, simple but sturdy story, and like
Yeah.
again, good vibes across the board. It's an enjoyable film to watch. It is humorous, it is sweet, it is heartfelt, it is kind, it is compassionate. Like it's delightful. I think it's so worth a watch, especially if this is a movie you saw maybe, you know, 10 to 30 years ago.
Mhm.
I think it's well worth a rewatch. It's really fun, it's really cute. It makes you think, it makes you feel, and it's also like does that in a very non-taxing way. You know how there's like certain
Yeah.
films where I'm like, I'm not gonna just like sit down and like
Watch this movie
watch.
right now.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna just like sit down and like casually watch The Zone of Interest or whatever.
Yes.
Like,
Benny Joon and the Zone of Interest. Great double feature.
great double feature. But yeah, I think it's good vibes, sturdy, straightforward story. I really loved it. I've loved this movie for a long time. Watching it again
And you
was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and you clearly vibe out with the June and to a lesser extent the Samness of it all, it seems like.
I just vibe out with being like, I get it. Sometimes it's so hard to have a boring conversation with somebody about fucking
So,
the weather.
sometimes sometimes you are just like, yeah, sitting around in a diner and it's time to make the baguettes do a little tap dance, you know? Like that's another super impressive bit of
I
physical
know.
something that Johnny Depp clearly practiced a lot because he pulled that off really well,
He
and
does a great job.
kudos.
It's also, I think, if nothing else, it's a worthwhile film to watch for like really funny, really good physical comedy and physical acting from Johnny Depp. I think he also really nailed it. I think everybody nailed their performances.
Yeah.
But
If you
yeah,
want to see
it's
some of the physicality that comes later in iconic performances like Jack Sparrow, you can trace that kind of the beginnings of when
yeah,
Johnny Depp was trying to get out of like the heartthrob 21 Jump Street era. He'd been out of it for a while at this point, and done other movies, but this is, yeah, definitely a piece where he was like, I want to explore characters through their physicality and really
yes,
push my body to be
yes,
like physically
part,
interesting and different. Yeah.
yes, and it's a part of the performance. Like
Yeah.
you can't have Sam without the physicality of Sam, and
Yeah.
it's really
Definitely not.
delightful. So, um,
I
so
also in keeping with our sibling thing,
oh
our
yes, we
theme,
have to do the sibling scale.
we are also this season rating the relationship of the siblings of these movies on a sibling
Wait,
scale, 1 to 10, or something like that, or just a quick way to
wait.
describe it. Yes, Mayor, in the front.
I realized that we did not actually say what this season's theme was at the beginning in the intro.
Oh, sure. Well, hit us with a, or should I say it since you did a lot of the intro stuff?
You do the clean, do a clean take. Hang on, wait
Yeah.
for it. Do a clean take.
This theme's thing.
Not even close.
This thing
This
thing
makes the
thing.
same thing with stuff and things.
The same thing.
Up the dirt, and the prayer.
Oh man. Uh this season, thank you. This season's theme is appropriately siblings. Benny and June is a movie about a brother and a sister making their way, and we just love talking about movies about siblings. It is the thing that we are.
Making the way downtown.
What they said.
All right.
All right, clean break, and now back to. So we
Sibling
like to.
scale.
Yes, let's talk sibling scale. What do you think? How do you think that this sibling relationship was portrayed on screen?
Honestly, great. Like it's somewhere between an 8 and a 10 out of 10 for
Mhm.
me because I think in general I'm just like any so any time that I watch a movie that has siblings in it and I can pretty easily and quickly determine like, oh yeah, that's a thing Evan would do. or like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's some bullshit I would pull.
Mm-hmm.
It makes that automatically puts it at a higher sibling scale for films. And I think I'm gonna put it high just due to the fact that both you and I so strongly identified with the two characters in different
Mm-hmm.
ways. Um,
Totally.
and like identified with them, like, yes, I identified more strongly with June. You identified more strongly with Benny. And
Mm-hmm.
can also be like, but I understand how hard Benny's life is. And I understand how hard his reality is. And like, you
Totally.
know,
Yeah.
it,
And I appreciate all the things that June brings to the table being, it's nice to live life that freely despite having her problem. Yeah, it's a more it hits home. It's also just a more intense version of all the
it
problems
is
that a sibling
honestly,
pair could have, but you got to
yeah,
do that for a movie. It's got to be upped a little
I
bit.
know. And honestly, like, Evan, could you imagine if, like, when you were 18, God forbid, God forbid, I mean, we're well past it now, but like if our parents had died when I was 15 and you were 18, and like there was an option of you being like, well, I'm technically an adult, so I will be in charge of this fucking lunatic.
I would have been more than happy to take on that duty, responsibility, and fun. Yes, it also would have been an experience.
It would have been an experience for sure, but I think that I think it's an interesting sibling dynamic too, because they um I think so often with siblings there is a lot that goes not unsaid as in like you never talk about it, but just it doesn't have to be said because it's like
Right.
you're both on the same level.
Part of the
And I
makeup of the relationship. Yes.
mhm. And I think that is a big part that I could definitely see within the dynamic between Benny and June, of there's a lot of stuff that it's like a specific look or a specific like innocuous
Yeah.
phrase said in a certain tone where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they've had that fight before. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think
Totally.
that was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for me, I think that, because I was in my little like quirky haterade note-taking arena, there was a moment where I was sort of like there was like a moment certain amount of time into the movie where I was like, I haven't been given anything that makes me understand why these two love each other. It seems like they're just kind of angry at each other all the time, and like I want to like if this is the one note version of this relationship, then I'll be mad. But like immediately, as soon as I had that thought, the very next scene was like June like getting into bed and Benny being there, and they're kind of having an actual heart to heart, and that's when you get this sort of uh,
Like
flashback of like seeing the death of their parents, and you see Benny's sweet side, being sweet to June, and you see her kind of having a little bit of compassion and understanding for like him and feeling bad about whatever she's putting him through and stuff like that. So like right as I had that critique, it like the movie kind of came and was like, oh, okay, you gave me the thing that I was looking for. So yeah, ultimately I'm glad that. So yeah, I would 100%. I can safely give this sibling relationship like an 8.5 out of 10. I think very well
yeah.
uh, elucidated on, very well told, very clear and present, and yeah, I like the representation seen on screen. It
I
felt
did
like a
too.
real sibling relationship.
I always love a representation of a seemingly normal, sad older brother with anger issues and a younger, very chaotic and highly destructive sibling who is often challenging to
My life
manage.
is fire.
Yes, but no, I think this is a great I think this is a great depiction of siblings on screen, and it is like I said, it's well worth a watch. It's well worth your time. It's an hour and 30 minutes. Like,
Yeah,
it's
very easy watch. Let's take our people in for the easy landing. Where can the people find us, Mayor?
You can find us on YouTube. We have a thriving YouTube channel at Brother Sibling Movie. If you prefer to watch our gorgeous, bouncy red faces
Our
instead,
visages.
our
Mhm.
visages. You can watch us on YouTube at Brother Sibling Movie. You can find us on Instagram, which is not often updated because I have been traveling a lot for work. That is also at Brother Sibling Movie. You can email us thoughts, opinions, feelings, takeaways, um, comments about how similar our hair looks at brothersiblingmovie@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, which is not often updated, and I'm kind of getting away from social media in general and Instagram and all of that in
Totally.
particular. But if you want to look at a back catalog, it is at lawn_daddy_lives_here. At lawn daddy lives here
Yes.
_ between the words. Evan, where can the good people find you?
The good people can find me at my website, artofevank.com, which I am frequently updating and hopefully getting to the final spots of, where it actually can feel more or less totally live. You can find me on the social medias on just about everything as at artofevank. I'm trying to build up my presence a little bit more on I have been doing it on Instagram. I'm trying to do it a little bit more on Blue Sky these days, and also giving Canva a try, which is sort of like something specifically for artist portfolios things. So you can go to all those places and see some of the drawings that I'm making these days, the cartoons and illustrations and stuff like that. So you can find all
Yeah.
my stuff there. And check me out on LetterBoxd as Evan Kerna, where you can read a bunch of dumb little one-word hilarious reviews that I write.
I love you so much, and go watch a movie with your sibling.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
I fucking will.
Yeah.
Until next week. Love you. Bye.